This is for all you shade tree mechanics who, like me, sometimes wonder about the things that are published on the internet and who's communicating information. And as much as I've come to appreciate the value of having the right tool in the right situation, utility also has its place. And for an item that I use maybe once a year, maybe I don't buy the top brand item. And boy, did this thing lop off my muffler system, my exhaust system, with a fresh bimetal blade very quickly. But the purpose of this video is this. My favorite jack was stolen out of my garage a few years back, and I didn't replace it. And I kind of acquired some different style jacks, bullet. I forget the name of those ones that are just shaped like a bullet. But they didn't really have the lift range that I was looking for. And, my buddy has a Harbor Freight Dayton or Daytona, I think it is, brand. And I very nearly put the money on the table for that. And when I was told that I had to buy a membership at Harbor Freight to get the price that I was reading, it just rubbed me the wrong way. Now, mind you, I had borrowed my buddy's jack and proven to myself that it really had a great deal of utility for me. And, that's really the issue that I want to emphasize, utility, because in the end, maybe a bargain isn't necessarily a bargain, because when this thing gets under my vehicle to reach that rectangular mount point to lift the rear of my vehicle, and with the tires on the ground, I can't even make the throw long enough to raise the jack, I start wondering about my sanity and my choice of vendors. And granted, even with the discount price, the Harbor Freight product was almost $100 more, maybe more than $100 more. But in the end, it had a longer arm to accomplish the same lift of roughly 20 inches, which is what I was looking for. If you buy the cheap stuff, it may come back and bite you. That's a year-old Chinese-sourced CV axle. I chose to put the whole CV axle in my minivan last year. I bought a closeout CV axle because it had the boots already installed. This was Rock Auto, whom I depend on, where I just spent $1,000. But you get what you pay for, and when you buy the cheap shit, it doesn't necessarily work out the way you might think in the long term. And really, that's the bottom line. Here's a Monroe quick strut that, really before it had much use at all, the rubber accordion dust boot tore. And I decided, rather than taking the whole freaking thing apart again, that I would simply put some duct tape in the place of the ring tear in the boot so that, I would keep crapula out of the seal on the strut. So hard lessons learned from under the shade tree. I will be, going back to Lowe's and saying, hey, even though this jack had the top rating in the top 10 jacks review, I think those were paid reviews, because in both scenarios where I wanted this thing to make my life simple, sorry for all the walking around, even without extra blocks, I'm only getting halfway up on my jack stand here. And so I got to do multiple lifts, and guys who have a lift, listen to me talk here and say, well, quit being a cheapskate. And they're right. They are categorically right. But, different folks have different resources, and I sometimes find myself at the limit of mine. Case in point, this project. So, I'm blessed to have a Sunday morning in the shade with a high barely to reach 80 today. I'll put up a shade here to keep me out of the sun, and I'll have that exhaust system and a bunch of other suspension parts in before the day is out. Just my thoughts on Harbor Freight product, on Lowe's and these reviews on the internet, and maybe to take a second look and a second thought before you buy the closeout item at Rock Auto. Love them. Prices are incredible, but it is what it is.